Hey, bubbling, coming in, crushing this art. Right back at it with the last sign of fall. We all know it's Sagittarius. So, straight off, just like I said with Gemini, like I said with Virgo, and like I'll say with Pisces, this is a mutable sign. So even if they're Saturn, even if they're Sun, even if they're Moon, even if blah 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 and all their X's, Y's, and Z's are in fixed places, this is someone that's going to be mutable. They're going to be shifting. They're not going to come at it with a plan. They're not going to be just in it with whatever they want, you know what I mean? They're not just going to be like not developing new plans and just sticking with whatever they did that one time because it was great. No, they're going to be like you know when you see pictures of like the desert and then the sand's always shifting and moving and doing all sorts of things, but it's just receptive, right? It's like they're just going to be reactive and mutable like a wave, you know? So yeah, this is someone straight up that's going to be receptive and mutable to things. So they're ruled by Sag first, or they're ruled by Jupiter first off, Sag rising. So this would be someone who like feels a deep connection to what they're doing as well, right? Like they resonate with it. Like so yeah, this would be someone with like maybe not practical reasons behind everything they do, but more philosophical and more true to them. Like, well, like I'd rather die doing it my way than live your way, you know? That kind of energy. So straight up, 1st to 7th, what they may have to learn in their 7th house, Gemini, is that, hey, like sometimes you can just play with ideas, you know? Like sometimes it ain't got to be so deep, because Sag rising initially is going to be a very deep person. I mean, look at their 4th house, Pisces. Emotionally, like they're used to at home getting sucked up into things, right? So probably growing up, a lot of things like had like emotional weight that they had to like figure out some sort of like way of explaining to themselves or way of coping with, right? Like a way of dealing with it spiritually, or like kind of like a higher understanding, so that they didn't just stay low, right? Or like a Sag could be someone, right, that doesn't kind of understand the reason, but that's something that it's really important to them, so it could be a struggle, right? If they're lost in these things and they don't like, it doesn't resonate with them higher, they can't bring it to their purpose, right? So yeah, that would be the 1st, 7th, and the 4th. At home, they get lost in things emotionally, so Sag, be careful who you let into your private life, because yeah, obviously you're going to connect to these people. You're going to like get lost in what's going on there emotionally. So this could be good in that if at home you have something set up to where these people are doing something great, you can get lost in that emotionally and really boost like the depth of whatever they're doing. But if it's not great, you can get lost in the sort of negative energy and kind of start developing and like reacting to a more negative situation emotionally at home, right? So, and then 10th house, Sag is viewed as a Virgo, so this is almost like master of none, knower of all, right? So publicly they're seen as like, hey, if you need to know this, you need to know that, I got you, right? Mutable Earth. So yeah, it almost might be like a little bit of they want like structure publicly too, like the Virgo there. They know how things work, right? So it's like with their career or with how they're showing themselves, is they kind of want to understand how this will line up to what they're trying to accomplish, like the Virgo. Yeah. And yeah. So then if we go to the 2nd versus the 8th house, the 2nd house is Capricorn. So Sag would value being able to initiate new structures, right? So, yeah. Yeah, they would just be passionate about initiating new structures. That would be the cardinal Earth, ruled by Saturn. So yeah, they'd really like, it's almost like they would always kind of be spiritual, and they would have a higher reading, like meaning behind what they do, regardless if it's just like true to them or some sort of philosophical or like other reason. But either way, it's like they'd want to utilize that in a way of like bringing that into form. So yeah. So then if we go to the 8th house, this is Cancer. So behind closed doors, things that they do when they alone, things that they don't see coming, things involving the occult, mystic things, you know, the unseen, inheritance, things like that. These would be things that they're like have a close connection to, having Cancer here. So So it'd almost be like their second house is, yeah, it's where they're just like their values, they're just like, yeah, this makes sense to value. Whereas like behind closed doors and what they do in private, it might not make as much sense like practically, but it will still be something that like resonates them with, makes sense because they're like a Sagittarius. So it'd be like they value being able to actually bring something into being, but behind closed doors it's like throwing all that out the window. Like it doesn't matter what's actually like being brought into being, like let's have a good time basically. So that'd be the second versus the eighth. Now if we go to the fifth versus the 11th, their fifth is Aries. So this would be someone that expresses themselves selfishly, right? Like they stay true to who they are when they express themselves. They're not trying to level with you, you know? Whereas versus on the 11th house, who they're trying to associate with publicly, it's not like they're gonna fight there. They're gonna set them, Libras here, so they're gonna set themselves up with organizations publicly that they know they can work with, the Libra energy. Or if there's organizations that they can't really work with, is you're not gonna really hear from them, or you'll hear from them as little as possible because they won't want to like punch you in the face or say no, like I don't want to be a part of this, but at the same time they will only really want to support what they love, ruled by Venus. And so that would be like how they set up their interactions with people publicly, right? Whereas more privately, if they're expressing themselves, it's Aries. Like you're just gonna hear what they believe. All right, so that would be the 5th versus the 11th. So now if we go to the 3rd versus the ninth, their 3rd house, what's always around in their day-to-days, they do things unique. This is Aquarius, right? They don't need anyone else's input. They got it. They know what they're doing. Fixed air. It's like if you're sitting with a certain way that things work, right? A certain logic, right? And you never take anyone else's opinion, and you understand the structure of how that works, you're going to have your own unique way of utilizing that because you never ask for anybody else, right? Versus the Leo, Aquarius versus Leo that needs everyone else's input in order to make that shine, right? Almost like a showman, right? Like if or a comedian, if not everybody's laughing, it's not a good joke, you know, like that kind of energy. Whereas the Aquarius, it's like it's not meant to make people laugh. It's just meant to work, and you don't need anyone else because the logic sound, right, is the Aquarius kind of energy. So it's like, yeah, and that's where I think the uniqueness comes from, is that it doesn't need anyone else. They're just utilizing straight up logic, right? So yeah, so in their day-to-days, like if they write, if they make videos, if they do podcasts, like they're gonna have a unique way of coming about like their day-to-days, the things that they just fall into and like to do every day, right? So now if we go to the 9th house, Leo, it's almost like their purpose is to be able to bring this like mutable, like not about the beginning, not about the middle, but like about the end transition, like fit in where I need to be, like overview sort of situation. It's like they're trying to bring in like their broad perspective and what they resonate with through all the things that they've learned, because personally being a Sag, they just were acting, you know, like their mutable fire, they were just receptive and then they just went with it, right? And so if they're reacting to negative things, or they're like with negative people or negative situations, they're going to get burnt. And so and that's just going to happen, right? They're receptive, they're not going to think about it, they're just going to get burnt, and then they'll learn from it and develop safeguards from acting that way in the future. So this is someone that like would learn a lot, right? So it's almost like they did that personally and then privately. Personally, Sag, they get caught up going out and doing a bunch of the fire, whereas personally they just get caught up in like connecting too deeply to what is in their home life, right? Whether like their mom isn't the best person, or like their cousin is like just in like a druggie, you know what I mean? Like they get really caught up with that instead of disassociating. So they learn from that, you know, they learn what they need to be emotionally aligned with in order to succeed, you know, so in order to not be down, or like that would be a lesson they learn early on if they do learn it, right? Like not everyone learns. So but it's almost like the 9th house is where they want to express that Leo. They want to try to find a way to let everybody understand so that they can shine, right? The 9th house. But it's like they're definitely personally a Sag, so they're gonna try to find a way to bring it to your level, but they're not gonna change the topic. And that's like almost like their purpose would be like to bring that information through. So that would be the 3rd versus the 9th. Now if we go to the 6th versus the 12th, so when they need to develop a new structure, like they're working on starting a podcast, right, and they need to put in the groundwork, or they're just doing their day-to-day things like this, they're gonna want to do it in a way that they like. Ruled by Venus, we have Taurus in the 6th house, and they're gonna want it just to be a way. Like, they're not gonna want to have to switch it up. So this could be someone that gets frustrated when things break down, having Taurus there, because it's like they already like have their work schedule set up, and it will be like a big frustration, like an irk, you know, like Taurus doesn't like change, but at the same time, once they figure out what to do, it's like they're doing it. So when it comes to things like work, they could get in a solid routine. When it comes into things like stuff breaking down out of nowhere, they'd be really frustrated, but they would, if they tap into that Taurus energy, be able to develop a solid plan and execute it in order to get through that, right? And do it in a way that's just comfortable to them. So hopefully there is a way they can do it that's comfortable to them, right? Ruled by Venus. So yeah, this would be someone that would be able to develop a new thing, right? Like having the Taurus there, if they wanted to, like 2nd house, if they wanted to initiate that structure, then in the 6th house, they would just carry through, right? They'd do the day-to-days, they do the grind, you know what I mean? And they do it in a way that they feel comfortable, ruled by Venus. So now we get to the 12th house, which is when you just can't go any further. So this is Scorpio. So this is literally where Sag has their obsession energy, which kind of makes sense. So Sag is like obsessed with the boundaries, right? Which kind of makes sense. So it almost like plays into their like philosophic nature in a way. So when they finally can't get any further, this is where they almost like, they obsess in like mapping out reality in a way. So this would be someone that would take things like kind of deeply. Like they wouldn't like freak out and get mad, but they would take, when they really can't go any further, they'd really take it like deeply, and it would be in their mind for a long time, right? Like a loss or anything like that. So this will be Sagittarius, all houses, bubbling, coming in, crushing this art.